Hi, this is Coleen Greco, and you're listening to Awakened Nation with Brad Zales.
A huge shift is taking place on planet Earth. People seem to be waking up. Tired of the way things used to be, they are creating something brand new and changing the world we live in. My name is Brad Zales, and I get to sit down with the next generation of idea makers, the disruptors, and the game changers. Everyday people, just like you and me, from all over, who are doing amazing things. Welcome to Awakened Nation.
Hey, ladies and gentlemen, I have Coleen Greco on the show today, and she comes to me through Marcus Ogden, the NFL football player who went through hell and back many, many times. And I got an introduction to Coleen through him, and I'm really excited to interview her today on Awakened Nation. How you doing, Coleen? Welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Brad. I'm excited to be here today.
You got it. Hey, anybody who's listening, I want you to get a pen and paper because Coleen is going to give you some tips on how she got through hell and back. I'm going to read her bio in a minute and found her joy. She is a joyologist. I believe that is the science of joy. Am I correct?
Is that not the best job title ever?
I know. I remember when job titles started to be funny when Yahoo came out, Chief Yahoo, things like that. I think Google did it, and now everybody's doing it. Now they have mindset coaches, chief mindset officer, things like that. So I'm going to have to come up with a cool nickname for myself. So we'll see how that goes. So let's get started. Let me read this because as I was preparing for the show, I was really like, holy moly, how does a parent get through this? So here we go. Coleen Greco is a joyologist and discovered her purpose after her 10-year-old son's suicide attempt. It broke her and her family into tiny pieces. She lives in Boston, within miles of some of the world's greatest healthcare providers and facilities, and no one would answer the call to support her. Not one doctor, not one therapist. Coleen committed herself to a self-guided journey back to optimal health and to share her message with as many people as possible. Her mission is to help others alleviate their pain, if only for a little while being the shining example that joy can be found amidst crisis and that your trauma does not define you. Joy is the center of everything she does. She provides mindset coaching and nutrition coaching to people who feel stuck, unsure of their potential, and lack joy within their core. During this journey, she developed the S.N.A.P method, which we're going to talk about. Coleen, welcome to Awakened Nation.
Thank you for having me. That story still chokes me up, but I am thrilled to be here and be on the other side of it.
Yeah, it's tough. Let's start with that. Were there any warning signs that your son was depressed or he was, not wanting to live in this world anymore?
No, ironically enough, he was the most popular kid in his class, but there were two of them. And the other one was his best friend. And just like your classic, King of the Mountain story, there's only room for one at the top. And so one had to go.
Yeah.
And so the bullying was periodic. And there was this 1 week where it was sort of one thing right after another. Ended with my son having a suicide attempt. He was here in the house. We were home. We didn't know it. And as you might imagine, it just rocked our world. I just never, if you had said, is that the kid you would think would go that route? I would say you're crazy. 100% not. He's the happiest, most positive, most well-liked, most athletic kid you'd ever meet.
We live in a very different world than the one that I grew up in. And that is, if a bully confronted you, you knocked him out, there were only two ways. You either succumbed or you knocked him out.
Yeah.
And then you wound up being best friends. That's the weird part. But today it seems like we're in a very mean world where, all these anti-bullying campaigns, by the way, they discovered actually create more bullies. And because there's no ramification for them doing what they're doing, they get away with it.
Yeah.
So this was happening to your son. Was it both in school physically and online?
So it was at different places. So, like football practice, which wasn't school grounds. So, in order for the principal to take action, all of the occurrences had to be on school grounds and things were happening in different areas. So there was no connection. So it was one of those situations that essentially slipped through the cracks. But I have to say, when you're talking about the way that we grew up, and I'm putting myself in your camp. I don't know that we we grew up the same, but certainly not in the area of social media. There's just no escape.
Yeah.
These kids are accessible to each other 24 hours a day, and as much as I tried when they were a little bit younger to police their social media, that was a full-time job per kid. So it's very easy to miss those things online. But we educated them. We told them, you don't start something, but you finish it. You
Yeah.
stand up for yourself, but you don't instigate. He's such a loving kid. Ironically, too, the bully's parents were our friends. And
Wow.
so, yeah. So you had to hold me back from going over there and telling them what I thought of them. And I'm not that tough a person, but Mama Bear came out and I just wanted to take my hands and wrap it around that mother's neck. At one point I did confront her and she said, "I'm really sorry that you think your son suffered through this whole scenario, but my son had um oh geez, now I just blanked on what you call it. It impacted his reputation." I was like, "I'm sorry. You want to try that one again?" So, they're living through their kid. I completely get it. Obviously, poor choice of friends.
Yeah.
Um, but we are better, stronger, just so connected as a family now.
Yeah.
So I now have gratitude for that time in my life.
God bless you for that. And yeah, Mama Bear comes out. I remember when I was raising my nephews, someone tried to grab my nephew and push him out of the way because I was teaching him how to pump gas. I lost it on the guy. I just lost it. He looked at me terrified. So I can only imagine when a mother is confronted with the same.
Yeah.
I do want to, we are from different generations, and I do want to say this. Social media, I've noticed people are incredibly mean and they don't know they're mean. They just want to win. They want to win the battle of words and look how smart I am. It's all ego driven. And so the thing I hear when you say this mother of this other child, all I can say is is not teaching her son self responsibility for his actions towards another individual. And we all know that kids who act out and become bullies, it's because they're getting traumatized at home. Uh, they're also, and trauma doesn't have to be necessarily being hit or beaten, but not being taught properly that they are affecting another person. That's also a form of abuse. To live in this world as if they're the prince or the princess in the house and the parents are the subjects. Let's talk about that a little bit because I feel when I hear this mother refused to take responsibility for the emotional trauma she was causing your son.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And, I've taught him over the years, this is now 6 years ago, so we're out of the fray of it, but taught him that we have to look at those people with compassion. And that's a hard, hill
Yeah.
to go through. But we have gotten to that point where we've taught him how sad is that environment that they find this behavior acceptable or that they're blind or deaf to it.
Yeah.
Right. And that's exactly what it was. I mean, I remember very clearly where I was standing when I told her what happened. And for her not to even, like kind of like lose her breath. Perfect. I mean, I saw your face. You lost your breath, and I don't even know you.
Yeah.
She was our
Yeah.
friend. And
Right.
so it just goes to show you that they have a lot more going on. And, we got lucky that he wasn't successful. And, we've taught him to be like a compassionate, empathetic, kind human being. And that joy is at the root of every day in this house. And really, the only people on the planet that matter are the ones that live here. And
Right.
we just focus on each other.
That's good parenting right there.
Oh, thank you. So check, did something right.
Check the box. I remember when I was a kid, and this is for the boomers listening out there. I remember I got in trouble in school, and before I could even explain myself, my father would grab me by the back of the collar, and you either got a whooping, and I'm not saying that was a good thing, or my father made sure, I almost peed my pants from one look. That's all it took from
Mhm.
my dad. He had trained me. And so, privileges would be removed. You wouldn't be allowed to go places and do things like that. And the impetus of all this is because he wanted me to take responsibility for my actions. And I think parenting has shifted, and I want you to talk about that. But parenting has shifted over the last 50 years. We had thousands of years of parenting, and suddenly Dr. Spock comes along and says, no, you can't parent like that. And Carl Rogers as well was one of those PhDs who complained about it. But my parents and most boomer parents never saw us as little angels that could do no wrong. We were being taught how to survive in this world and how to treat others with respect. And you taught your son something really brilliant, not to get religious or anything like this, but this was the cornerstone of the teachings of Jesus Christ, which was forgiveness. You have to forgive your enemy and see things from their perspective and forgive yourself. So let's talk about the shift in parenting a little bit. And you did something really wonderful. You helped your family collect all those pieces back together. So take us on that journey again.
Thank you. So, I actually said this to somebody earlier today. I said, if I actually counted the number of mistakes I've made, it would be in the millions upon millions. But there
Hmm.
are definitely a few things we did right. I think what happened in our situation is we were not as present as we needed to be. I don't know that there were warning signs, truly. Maybe there were, but obviously I didn't see them. And I am the type that needs to kind of get hit over the head with something sometimes in order to see it. But I feel like, this situation caused us to really evaluate what matters and to be able to pivot. That maybe we were relying too much on technology to babysit our kids because let's face it, our lives are overscheduled, overtaxed. There's demands coming at us from every which way, which is no excuse. It's just most people's reality. And it caused us to kind of say, like, hang on, we can't allow all of this input, like social media and different friend groups and different TV shows and what have you. We have to, at some point, control it. And so
Yeah.
we kind of went on this cleanse almost. We started over. We made our world really, really small. He didn't have a single play date because, he was 10 at that point. So they were doing play dates. He didn't have a single play date for a year.
Yeah.
Not because we shut that down, by the way, because he lost all of his friends. They all went with the bully. Um, but it caused us to really, think about how we wanted to define ourselves. Did we want to just keep kind of going through the motions and rushing to the finish line, which at that point was graduating middle school and then it was high school and, college and whatever? Or is it to really be grounded in every single day that we have? Because I say this in my coaching practice all the time. We all only have a number of days left. Some
Yeah.
people have 3, some people have 3,000. I don't know which one you are. I don't know which one I am. So I'm going to act as though today is my last day every single day. Um, and so how that relates to our the way that we parent, it's hard because I feel like it has changed. Those parents, the bully's parents, are living through that kid. Neither one of them are overly successful. Neither one of them were very good at athletics. This kid needed to immediately be put on a pedestal and supported in every which way so they could live through his success, like super clear. And we,
Yeah.
every so often we kind of like think about where he is now because he's a junior in high school. And you see it everywhere. All they do is elevate their kid. Um, we just didn't want it to be that way. We wanted our kids to be really well grounded, good human beings. And what that meant in terms of a profession really doesn't matter at the end of the day. So it all became
Does.
about, what do we want people to say about us after we're gone? Was it that we were like a really good marketer, good podcast host, or a kind human being that I know if I picked up the phone, Brad would be there in 2 minutes?
Yeah.
So, it allowed us to pivot.
That's fantastic. This in this day and age, I feel like there's so many outside influences attempting to destroy the family. And you did something that was brave, courageous, even by pulling your son out of these, toxic places and environments and online discussions and things like this. So, kudos to you. So, when you found out that no one was there to help, how did you begin this self-care for your family? What was it that was it out of frustration, or you just said, well, I guess we're on our own?
Yeah, and this isn't a storybook story, right? This
Yeah.
wasn't a fairy tale. I ate and drank my way up to a very high weight, so clearly did not handle it well in the beginning.
Right.
Tried to numb, and
I don't blame you. I mean, it's your child. It's your
yeah,
child.
it's as if you just got electrocuted. You're like,
Yeah.
stop the pain. And so I gained a bunch of weight, and in what, 2 months, maybe 3 months, some very short period of time. And I just felt miserable, and he seemed to be getting worse. And I just said, if I'm going to heal this family, because they're looking to me for answers, and by the way,
Yeah.
I don't have the answers. If I'm going to do this, I need to heal myself first. And so I hired a nutrition coach, and I started to lose all the weight, and I lost 52 pounds in total. But
Wow.
I know, I love saying that, like, yay. Um, when I was about 35 pounds down, my coach and I had a discussion, and I said, I really need your help developing strategies so that I never have to do this whole process again. Like, let's just do this once. I'm having so much fun with it, right?
Right.
And he said, I'm not your therapist. And I thought, wow, you missed the point entirely. If you don't see the connection between mindset and nutrition, man, you were in the wrong business. Like, you missed it completely. And so I saw an opportunity there. And that was the day the S.N.A.P method was born. That was the day the Joyologist was born. And I said, I have this training, I have this knowledge, and I have this fire inside me, because there are millions of women, especially. I coach men too, but predominantly women. There are millions of women that are just looking for that permission to take care of themselves. Somebody has to
Yeah.
give them the permission. And so that's what I do. I work with them. I teach them every single thing I know, through all of my training and my own life experience, to help them to not only lose the weight, but keep it off. And the way that we do that is by removing the limiting beliefs that have them running to the pantry or the beer fridge in the first place.
Yeah. You hit the nail on the head. It is a daily habit. Now, I don't believe there's anything such thing as a diet. Okay. I believe you create habits that bring us to health or take you down into dis-ease. And so developing those daily habits of getting up in the morning and just taking care of yourself is self-love. Uh, I got my fiance to basically, um, she would let her food sit for a while and work and work and work and then take a bite and work. And I got her to sit down and take a break and have a warm, hot meal, because I love to cook. And then, yeah, and for me, I'm not pointing the finger at her. I've done some dumb things in my life. I used to live on fast food. I mean, I'm the son of a chiropractor. I know everything about health. Why did I do that to myself? So, mindset, I think, is even bigger than people realize. It's, do you reach for a donut or do you reach for, some protein? I had to give up coffee because it's not resonating with my body anymore. And I take my hat off to you for doing that. So what is, by the way, The SNAP method. Oh, snap is what I kept thinking of. But what is
Yeah.
the
Oh,
SNAP
yeah,
method?
sure. So the SNAP method, SNAP is an acronym, of course, and but it's also kind of like a philosophy, right? That, in a snap, you can change your mindset.
Right.
Now, it doesn't always stick when you quickly change like that, but with practice over time, you become a master. So it's all about how you deal with the triggers that are presented to you. Those moments where you feel like, "Rugh," like I'm aggravated, I'm annoyed, I'm triggered. And so S stands for stop. And you simply stop when that trigger presents itself and just let it wash all over you. And that is uncomfortable. I'm going to tell everybody that. When that trigger hits, you're like, that's it. I'm going and eating a package of Oreo cookies, right? Just stop, let it come, and just acknowledge it and kind of respect it. The second step is notice, which is when you get your journal. And I used to be this anti journaler, which is hilarious because I love journaling. It is like the fastest way to deal with this stuff.
Yeah.
So get a notebook, a piece of paper, a bunch of sticky notes, and start journaling. And I want you to record all of the symptoms that are, kind of occurring when this trigger hits. So there's always a visceral reaction. For me, I get this lump in my throat, like I swallowed a golf ball. Some people break out into a sweat, some shake. Everybody has a little bit of a different response, but you know what it is because it happens all the time. And you record the story, that trigger, as you believe it to be. This isn't the time to judge it, question yourself, correct yourself, whatever. Just record it and the physical symptoms as you know them to be. Then after, you've cooled off a bit, you go to A, which is accept or analyze. And that's when you can go back to your entry and separate, your entry. You separate the facts from the emotions, right? So the facts are the facts and the emotions are what you believe about the story. And so by separating those, you're able to kind of look at it more objectively. And when you look at the facts, you can decide if that story is true. So,
Right.
I have this story, I can never do anything right. I've let it go now, but at the time it was around not calling ahead when I left the gym to let my husband know I was going to be late, which caused him to be late for work. And I said, I can never do anything right. And I thought, now that's ridiculous. Is it really true I can never do anything right? And so I used the SNAP method on it. And I really found like factually that is not true. I can't tell myself that story anymore. And
Right.
slowly you begin to reprogram the ego. And the last step is P, which is practice gratitude. You want to thank the trigger for coming. It keeps you humble. Above all else, and for every single person listening, I can't impress this enough. You are human. You are going to make mistakes. You are going to take things the wrong way. You're going to take them personally. Like,
Yeah.
no one is perfect. And if you just give yourself that grace and compassion, you'll stop yourself from running to the pantry and self sabotaging. Because the opposite of self sabotage is self love. And that's the goal with the whole process.
You just described my whole life right there. Yeah. uh, Here's where I find it hilarious. There's always this moment. It happens every 4 to 6 months, but it's that day where I have to be on time somewhere. The car won't start. The garage door is busted, or something else is going wrong. I'm stuck in traffic, and in that moment, you're squeezed.
Hmm.
And you go, and that's when you say that limiting belief. I can never be on time. I can never do anything right. I can. Do you hear what you're saying? I am this thing that I'm holding on to. And that's the moment. You almost have to use those moments as a barometer to check in on those traumas and heal them. And we get them, they're installed. I always used to say this, you're gonna laugh at this one, Colleen. Uh, your belief system and these traumas are like post-it notes that have been stapled to your head by your parents, by teachers, by the bully out there. And those beliefs are so strong. You're right, there's a psychosomatic reaction to it.
Hmm.
For me, it's always like, can't catch my breath, and that's when I know I have to stop and heal that trauma. We use eutaptics or faster EFT here in this house. Robert Smith created that, and that's where they discovered this woman was deathly afraid of swimming. There was no logical reason. And the doctor, I forget his name, but he said, where are you feeling this? And she says, in the pit of my stomach. So there's a pressure point right under the eye or the stomach. And he had her tap on that. And within an hour, she's jumping in the water, swimming. She had never done that before. So these modalities, these healing modalities, they work, ladies and gentlemen. And, maybe the mainstream medical professions poo poo this stuff, but it is our job to take responsibility for not only our physical health, but our mental health. And this is part and parcel of the work that Coleen does, our official joyologist. I also want to reach out and just say real quick, thank you, Marcus Ogden, for introducing us. Marcus has had an amazing journey as well, and I can see why you work with Marcus, Coleen.
He's a good egg.
He
I had a
really is.
story similar to that yesterday where I was just giving the dog a bath. That's it. How hard could that be? But he's all over the place. He soaks me, he soaks the floor, then he jumps out of the sink. The water's all over the kitchen now. And then he got the zoomies. So now he's flying around the house and stops in my kitchen. And what do you think he does?
He uses the bathroom.
Number two. Yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, ah! But, through the S.N.A.P method, I said, like, you've got to find the cuteness in that. You've got to see that he was just having a good time. It wasn't anything I did. It wasn't anything I did wrong. He was just being a dog. It's no big deal. And I cleaned it up within 3 minutes and went along my day. But years ago, that would have devastated me.
Yeah.
How come it never happens to my husband? How come he's always well behaved for him, right? You don't have to take that on.
Well, here's the number one reason why you need to work on those things, and that is, and I don't want to pressure anybody and say, "Hey, you got to do this. You would have, should have, could have done this." But the reason I and Colleen work on these things is because our brain kind of resonates out into the world and creates our reality, and that limiting belief resonates back. If you don't believe you can be successful, guess what kind of people you're going to hang out with? At each level, I see people who've leveled up, and all of a sudden, this person comes into their life, and they're like, wait, I never had friends like this before. And now you are surrounded by quality people because you've changed. Did you find that to be true as you isolated your family and healed? Your friendships now had some real strong ties and emotional connections because you've upped your game. You changed what you resonate with. Is that true? Did you see
Yes.
that to be true?
100%. Yes, I really believe that too. The energy you put out is the abundance you invite back in. And I felt that there were friendships I needed to release, and I didn't plan on necessarily releasing them through this process, but it's what happened organically. And the friendships I was able to invite in were such high quality. I ended up most of my life having friendships that were nothing but one-sided, where they would take from me, and I never got anything in return. I asked this one friend during this whole process. She said, you're really not good at asking for help. And I was like, okay, I'll try it. So I asked her for help once, and I got a no. And I was like, see, you're a taker.
Yeah. And
But
takers
that's
always
okay.
find givers.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. And so commanding, not in such a aggressive way, but showing people how you want to be treated is how they end up treating you. And so commanding that type of bidirectional relationship, that's all I attract now. I have these great relationships where I actually feel like they're probably giving me more than I'm giving them. And I'm kind of okay with that, right? Because I know I'll always give.
Right.
And it's really it's changed our lives.
I was a lot like that. The nice guy syndrome, always a giver. And I saw this phrase the other day that just it blew my mind. And it's sort of like givers, people who have the habit of giving, it actually feels painful to stop giving. We just have an automatic water spout going on.
Yeah.
And someone said, you better establish boundaries when you're a giver because takers have none. And that was that was a slap in the face. I went, oh, and for a long time, for years, maybe decades, I attracted narcissists. Didn't realize it because they would pretend to give and then they would slowly withdraw and they would keep a tally sheet of everything I did or did not do. They actually wrote it down and you're like, those people are crazy. And so, yeah, sorry. That's a technical term, by the way. Uh, uh, I notice, like you, when you up your game, when you do the work, when you make changes, you're going to attract very different people, different experiences, more abundance comes into your life. You discover secrets that you didn't know before when your consciousness was in a much lower state. And I'm not saying higher or lower, I'm just saying more positive versus negative. And so I noticed it for myself when I stopped drinking. And for 25 years, I didn't touch a drop of alcohol. And I remember that first round of saying, I'm not going to drink. A lot of my friends were personally offended. And I just looked at them like, I told them, I said, I'm not stopping drinking because I'm an alcoholic or I don't want to have fun. I can hang out with you and make you laugh and do all the things you love about me. But I choose on my spiritual path to not take these things because they slow that growth.
Yeah.
And I was totally neutral about it, and they got to be neutral about it as well because of my attitude towards it. But I started to realize I had a whole pack of friends that were using me for my entertainment value when I sat with them, and I was no longer funny anymore. I was talking about more serious things. And so, did you find that to be true as well? Because now you weren't, sorry to say this on my show, but you weren't bullshitting yourself anymore. And a
Right.
lot of people, I think, bullshit themselves in this world. And, they make up stuff about themselves or factoids, or they think they're better than they are. And that family that was in denial about how their little angel treated your son, being in that denial, you just look at them like, wow, how could you not see it? Uh, so let's talk about that a little bit.
Well, it's interesting you talk about how you show up when you don't drink. So I too don't drink. Um, because I felt like, there's a little thing that happens when you enter your 40s. Like your body really is like, nope, that doesn't work for me. I was
Yeah.
crankier. I was just waking up irritable. And I love to work out. And I love to work out first thing in the morning. So it had to go. I also felt drinking 3 beers a night for those however many months, 2, 3 months, um, was not the right like routine to get in. And so I just decided it had to go. By the way, each craft beer was 307 calories. So I didn't
Wow.
realize I was drinking almost 1,000 calories. No wonder I put on so much weight. So newsflash. Um, but I had a trip to Vegas. I think it was like 10 or 12 days after I gave up alcohol. And I was at a reception and I think I had a Diet Coke in my hand or something. And this VP that I worked really closely with at the time said, "You're not drinking?" And I said, "Nope." Like, what? To me, it wasn't a big deal. I just made this choice. And he said, "Man, you're no fun." And I was like, "Oh, okay. I
Yeah.
think I am really fun. I actually think I'm hilariously funny, but okay." And he must have said it to me 10 times, Brad. I swear to you. And I was like, what does that say about you? That like
Yeah.
maybe you're no fun and you're uncomfortable with the fact I'm not drinking. And it never occurred to me that somebody would question
Yeah.
what I had in my hand. Right now I
Yeah.
have a water in my hand. This is drinking. Like I drink the water. I don't bathe. Well, I do bathe, but like this is a drink. A Diet Coke is a drink. A juice is a drink. Why does it have to be alcohol in order for me to like fit in? It's
Yeah.
ridiculous. And by the way, I'm going to live a heck of a lot longer than he will. So,
Oh, it's true.
yeah.
Um, when you drink, it ages you, it destroys your organs. And nowadays, I do have an occasional glass of wine, but maybe once every 4 months. It doesn't rule my life. And the thing is that, I hear when you say this, I have the Irish gene, by the way. So, my mom's side of the family, all Irish. So we grew up around alcohol. I'm surrounded by alcoholics, by the way, as I'm growing up. And for some reason, I don't have that craving. Like I have to drink. And I thank
Mhm.
God every day for that one. But you are so right when you talk about this, the culture sometimes. I actually had a business partner once tell me when I didn't drink, he's just like, I can't trust people who don't drink. And I shot back. I looked at him and I said, why would you ever say that? Because people who drink and can only be themselves when they drink, those aren't real people, my friend. You have to have, nothing between you and your authenticity. And he just was confused by that. And I feel that, it's a choice right now, especially if you're healing, or you need to heal. Are you reaching a certain age where, you pointed it out when you hit your 40s, when I would have a glass of any alcohol, I would wake up with a headache. And that never happened before.
Right.
And
Yeah.
so you are forced to make that shift, I would say. Would you say that's right?
Yeah, 100%. And what's amazing is it is actually spilled over into my children. So they're 17 and 20. I never told them they couldn't drink, but they see us not drinking. And it's just like, wow, you're still fun and have fun and funny. Like
Yeah.
I maybe don't need this. And so it's had a really positive effect. And I've told them, please don't say you're never going to drink. Like you're going to go to college, you will go to a party, you will try something. I'm good with it. I just ask you maybe try a Bud Light rather than an entire bottle of whiskey. I always tell them a Bud Light is sort of like, hey, Brad, how we doing? And a bottle of whiskey is like getting cold cocked in the face. So
Yeah.
let's not do that. Let's kind of ease into it. And honestly, they have no interest. And I actually have noticed this trend on social in the last maybe 6 months. There are more alcohol-free bars
Yeah.
that are popping up and people are just consciously giving it up because they lack presence and they want to be fully present in the things that they're experiencing. So,
Yeah.
you and I are trailblazers.
Wow. I never thought of it that way, but that you just actually mentioned the number one reason why, and I've tried pot, I've tried other things and I've drank and all this because I grew up in the 70s. And the bottom line is I hate having my brain and my mind and everything being so misty. I hate that. I hate that feeling. I like to be present. I like to be awake. I like to be focused. Uh, when I drive, I don't daydream. A lot of people they just start to drift. I don't do that. I'm focused, and I think that's the key to health, to healing, to be aware of your limitations and to heal those traumas. It's a fascinating conversation. Thank you, by the way.
And I
Um,
love it ties into your name, Awakened Nation.
yeah, exactly. I won't talk about ayahuasca and peyote on this show, but I have done this to gain clarity. I mean, I just tested it out to see what it would do because they are healing modalities if they're used properly. But with you, how did you suddenly discover that you can be a joyologist? Because it is rare that people look for joy in life. They want to see achievement, goals being met. How can I get unstuck? What is it? And you focusing on joy, I think, is a tremendous asset to this mindset um, modality that you've created. Let's talk a little bit about that because joy, man, that's when you know you're in the zone, I believe.
I always say, if not for joy, then why are we doing any of this? So, as we were starting to heal, so you have to understand when you have, and maybe you do, maybe your listeners do, when you have that type of situation where it's a suicide attempt or a successful one, right? You're thinking in seconds. You're not thinking about what you can have for lunch. Like that's way too far in the future. You're just trying to get to the next minute. And so I just sort of started to have this conversation with my son about like finding joy in the smallest of moments, like taking the dog for a walk and just loving the fact that they are sniffing on everything, taking an hour to walk a mile, right? Distracted by something we can't even see. Like,
Right.
how can we make that fun and playful? And just look for joy in every little interaction that we have. And so that's what we did. We just grounded every minute of every day in joy. And again, even when there were tough days, it wasn't like the minute we decided that we were, off to the races. We had plenty of setbacks, but to me, joy is a choice. It's a state of mind. And when you can ground your heart and your body in joy, you can tolerate
Yeah.
those fluctuations.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it started. And as I was having this conversation with my coach about developing these strategies, I realized, wow, like when I am firmly rooted in joy, I'm super clear about who I am and who I'm not. Um, I also always felt like I was in service to others in every role I've ever had. I had a very thriving career,
Hmm.
high paying job in IT marketing leadership that I left to do this because I just felt like, wow, if I can help people heal and feel as amazing as I do every day, I need to do that. People need joy. They lack joy like it's their job.
Right.
And I need to do something about that. And I really, to your point, like to get religious for a second, God put me on that path. He
Yeah.
hit me over the head with my son's suicide attempt to say, like, you are slowly killing yourself in this
Yeah.
job. You've got to get out. And so that's basically what I did was work to help people see what they have as abundance and not lack. So the
Yeah.
whole abundance mindset versus scarcity mindset, I could talk about for weeks. But instead of always chasing that next thing, how can you live in the present, loving every single thing that you have? So when I go to walk my dogs and it's 19 degrees out and I'm freezing, I don't think about that. I think about the fact that they're doing something ridiculous and, making yellow snow cones and such, right? Like I make things funny. They don't
Yeah.
get along with this dog down the street, and the dog down the street never doesn't make a squeak or bark or anything. Has never advanced towards my dogs. I have little Australian Labradoodles, so they're little
Oh,
fluff balls.
yeah.
This dog just kind of like he gives off a vibe and they hate him and they go after him. And so I make it a joke and I pretend that that dog is saying yo mama jokes about me, right? Like, let's just make it fun.
Yeah.
So instead of, getting caught up in the stress of the fact that my dogs are embarrassing the heck out of me and this dog just kind of like trots along, I make it about a yo mama joke and I have fun with it.
I see this dog giving the middle finger as your dogs walk by.
Oh yeah. He's doing something. There's something happening because they
Something
just don't.
dog only knows, right? Only
Yeah.
the other dogs see it. Um, I was laughing earlier when you say some people their anger and their frustration is like a full-time job, and I'm thinking it's a full-time job with triple overtime and no pay.
Yeah.
They've just thrown themselves into miserableness, and it's literally like, hey, relax. And I find it funny. We're in a culture that's always on constantly, and sometimes I have to stop with friends and family and my girl and say, okay, why are we working so hard if we can't enjoy moments with that money?
Yeah.
Why can't we sit back and say, okay, let's spend a little tonight, go to that movie that seems ridiculous and frivolous. By the way, Dune's coming out soon. And so I think as human beings, we all get to that point where we hit a wall. And it's up to each of us to find the secret of how to either climb over that wall, dissolve the wall, or go around it. And it's different for every single person. The
Mhm.
blessing in your life is your son's suicide attempt.
Mhm.
And I hate to say it, but that awakened you to
Yeah.
deeper commitment to the family, to your husband, to your son, to everything in your life, and not, as I said before, not BS your existence here on earth.
Yeah.
I love that about you. Um, the joy part, this is incredible, because it's mindset. It's love of self, and humor plays into this. Did you give your dogs voices? That's all I need to know.
Well, they do have a response to the Yo Mama joke, but yeah, they're kind of like, I think they're like yippee. Like
Yeah.
I think the dog that is telling the Yo Mama joke has like a cigar and he's like, Yo Mama. And my dogs are like, nobody talks that way about my mama.
Yeah. Who do you think you are? It's like what's his name? The talking dog or whatever, the comic dog. I forget his name. He said something to poop on. He'd smoke a
Yeah.
cigar. Yeah. That's
That's Theo
hilarious.
in our neighborhood.
That's funny. Well, how do people get a hold of you if they want to reach out and get some coaching from you or read any of your blogs or articles, things like that? Where do we go?
Yeah, awesome. So Instagram's the easiest way to find me at the Coleen Coleen Greco Greco, all one word, or my
Hmm.
website ColeenGreco.com. And I would love to have a conversation with anybody that is just looking for a little bit more joy in their life because it's within their reach, and I want that
It
for
is.
everyone.
It is. And this is her life's mission, my friend. So please reach out to Colleen. Also, I don't want to forget this, but Colleen also has a podcast. And let's talk about your podcast. I mean, this is exciting.
Thanks, Brad. Yeah, it's called Joy Unleashed. I It's a TV show and a podcast, so it can be found on Apple TV, Amazon Fire, Roku, and then the podcast network. And the whole mission of the show is to inspire women to just, lean into their potential. I want them to break those societal norms, question what their purpose is, and really take a path towards their potential.
I love it. I love it. And were there any guests that really surprised you that you've had on the show?
Yeah. So I think one that still causes that lump in my throat that I was talking about earlier
Hmm.
is a woman that is a three-time cancer survivor and stroke survivor before the age of 32 that has found joy on the other side of her health issues. And yeah, and it inspired her to become a cancer coach. So,
Wow.
kind of like us, where we didn't have the resources that we needed to heal, she felt the same way. And it now coaches other cancer patients through things like survivor's guilt,
Yeah.
right? So, like, she learns she's in remission, but isn't happy and isn't like, yay, I'm healed. Now let's go to Burger King or something, right? Like, she can't leave the house. She's severely depressed. And so she coaches other women now, which is just phenomenal.
That's amazing. That is mind blowing. That that person is doing that because you go through hell and try to come back. It's not that as easy as people think. To
Yeah,
just
it's you get that you should be happy. Huh.
why
Well,
aren't you
thank you. I
smiling?
didn't think about that.
Yeah. Uh, I've had some of my closest friends when they see a photo of me very serious. They're like, "Well, why aren't you smiling?" I said, I'm not always happy. I'm not always. So I get angry when they do that. So awesome. Tune in, folks. That's a great service that a person provides when they do a podcast. So tune in. Thank you so much for being on Awaken Nation. This has been a fascinating conversation. I know it's hard to get over certain things, but you did it, and you're a beacon of light in this world. But I'm not letting you go just yet. We have a lightning round to go through. Are you ready?
I'm ready.
Good. I asked three questions of my guests so that everybody can get to know you better. And those three questions will take a little more of a deep dive into who and what you're all about.
Okay.
So, question number one: what is something that you're passionate about that we don't know you're passionate about?
Running.
You're one of those weirdos, huh? You get
I
up
am
at
one of those
5:30?
weird. I love to run. I find like it's the greatest disconnection to my phone, connection to nature. I feel like it's really grounding.
I
Love to
like
run.
hiking, so I can relate. And I am obsessed a little bit with Star Trek. So I get the whole obsession thing. Do you get that runner's high when you run?
Yes. Yes,
What
I
is
do.
that like? Because I hate running.
It's like I am untouchable. It's like I actually have Eye of the Tiger on my playlist, But when that's on, I'm like, look out, my friends. Greco's coming through.
There's,
It's you're untouchable.
yeah. It's like, what is your playlist for when you want to awaken the warrior within? It's like,
Mm.
yeah.
Yeah, DMX is on that. You want to hear
Oh,
about like
nice. Yeah.
expletives? Every
Yeah.
other word. And I'm like, the more the merrier. Let's go. I get all pumped up. Between he and Eminem, that's like the
Yeah.
perfect combination for me.
I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid to take a stand, to take a stand.
It's on there.
Everybody. Yeah. There's always something that fires us up. Yeah. I love that.
Yeah.
So my second question is, do you have a favorite memory?
Oh, geez, I didn't think this was going to come up. Yes, I have lots of favorite memories, but as you asked that, I jumped to my brother. I'm on his shoulders. We're in Prince Edward Island, Canada, which is where my parents had a summer house, and that is my happiest place on earth. I love that place more than anything.
Been there.
Honest,
I love it.
you have?
Yes, I have.
Oh, I want to go
I
there.
went to the Bouchard Gardens. Am I saying that right? Bouchard Gardens.
Bouchard
Uh,
Garden. Yes.
yeah, been there. Yeah, I took the ferry across. I took my dad to Alaska and then Vancouver, and yeah, love it over there. So
Uh,
sorry to interrupt. Please
no,
go.
it's okay. So I'm on his shoulders. My mom rings the cowbell because, we are like out in the middle of a
Yeah.
field, and he flipped me backwards because he had to like go run to dinner, and I landed on my head,
Ow.
which could explain a lot now that I say that out loud.
He was more hungry for food than he was for your
Yeah, he was
safety.
like, bye.
I love you, but mom made meatloaf.
I was his birthday present too. We're 10 years and 2 days apart, and we've
That's
always had a
funny.
great bond, but not that day. He was like, later.
Love you, but see you, sis. Yeah, I've been up there. Been to the Bouchard Gardens. I took my dad up to Alaska and Vancouver back in the day, and oh my God, is it picturesque and just beautiful up there. And the amazing thing about Canada that I've always, a lot of Americans can't wrap their head around. We're, the same miles across, basically, but your population is like 90 million or something like that, and our population is like 325 million. So when you get to these cities, they're so beautiful. They're so just like, they're settled within this beauty
Mhm.
that blows my mind. So you're Canadian, huh?
No, but so my dad's, I think it's second cousin or something, settled up there and
Nice.
had 50 million children. And so they have basically taken over the island. But we built a place back in the 90s, I think it was.
Hmm.
And since both of my parents have passed, the kids, I'm one of seven, we've all split the time up there. So we still get to hang on to it.
That's fantastic that you can do that. Yeah, very picturesque. My third and final question
Mhm.
is, what is your greatest hope for your family, or humanity, or the world in the next 20 years?
Oh, well, I get really concerned about what my grandchildren are going to experience because this world is so hyper connected. So I am hoping there is some visionary, like the opposite of Steve Jobs, that like created this amazing world of connectivity that comes and says, we've got to pull back and, have some boundaries in place because I see the way that my kids are attached to their phones. And I guess we are to some extent too, but we're really missing a lot of that connection. And I think
Yeah,
COVID cast a huge spotlight on that. And it scares me
yeah,
because I say this all the time. We are hardwired for human connection as a species. We can't go through this life alone. We shouldn't go through this life alone. And I see the mental health epidemic just
yeah,
explode as a result. And I just get really concerned about where that's going and
yeah,
trending. And so somebody somewhere, and we all need to do it too, but make it cool to pull back and learn how to play board games again. My husband used to work
yeah.
for Hasbro back in the
Oh,
day.
wow.
Yeah, but I mean, that is a dying company. They're
Yeah.
not making toys. They're not making board games. Like all that
No,
stuff is gone. And
it is.
that really scares me.
Yeah, it is very scary. There was his father, and he filmed his baby girl uh, playing on her iPad. And she's pressing stuff, and she's doing this, and she's doing that. And then they hand her a magazine, and she opens it, and she presses the pages, and she thinks her finger's busted. And then she presses her on her leg, and then she goes back, and she doesn't know how to use a simple, turn the page
Oh
magazine.
no.
So if you don't think technology is influencing us, ladies and gentlemen, you should be shocked by this. Our media has a huge influence on us. And I saw this when I was a kid, when the $6 Million Man came on TV. We all knew it was fantasy, but doctors were reporting all across the country. Little kids were jumping up on the table and said, "Doc, could you cut my legs off and give me bionic legs?" And I think your grandkids are going to be facing a future where they're going to have a chip implanted into their head. And the first round will be volunteers. The second round of this will be majority will start to get it. And then eventually the implant will be just as ubiquitous in our society as getting, circumcised. And it'll just automatically be there. That is my greatest fear. And I'm glad you brought it up. Will we be humans in the future? So we'll see. Any closing statements or things you'd like to discuss before we sign off here?
I would say the one phrase that my dad used to say, salts my apples, is
Where
because
the hell are you people from?
I can't say the other one because then you'll have to edit it out.
Yeah.
But what salts my apples is when people say, I'll start on Monday. Do not wait for Monday. Monday may never come. Start today. Start looking at the stories that you're telling yourself and question them. Question them with a childlike curiosity that gets you to really understand the root of what's going on, the truth that is wrapped in there somewhere. But that also, if you have that dream within you, that means it's implanted in you. You've just got to invite it in. It's out there for you. We've just got to, pull it in and act on it. It's there. And so I guess in summary, don't be complacent. You've got one life. Go for it.
Ladies and gentlemen, Coleen Greco. Please reach out to her. Go to ColeenGreco.com. And she's also on Instagram. What's your Instagram handle again?
At the Coleen Greco.
The Coleen Greco. It's been a joy. See how I did that? It's been a joy to have you on the show today. A great conversation. God bless you. I don't mean to say this. I'm glad your son went through what he did because it awakened you. Yep. It also got him probably to be stronger in life and to not be so darn trusting,
Yeah.
And
it was a blessing.
It is. And hats off to your husband, because a lot of times these kind of events can cause divorce and people to not lean forward, but to lean back and try to get away from the situation. So testament to him as well.
Thank you.
So,
he's a great guy.
Thank you. Thank you. Hey, everybody, tune in again next week. We always have an extraordinary guest here on Awakened Nation. Until then, hey, take care. And thank you, Coleen.
Thanks for having me, Brad.
You bet.
Thank you so much for being a big part of the Awakened Nation movement. This is how you can help me and our extraordinary guests. If you guys enjoyed this episode, please share it out on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And let's grow this movement by word of mouth. Our success will be because of you. Thank you, and see you next week.